I'm ashamed of my incompetent classmate.
At an alumni association, I had reunited with a classmate who is now a bank president. He mocked me just like old times. As I was enduring that, a car stopped in front of the venue. I could never have imagined that the person who emerged from that would greatly change both of our fates. My name is Michael Fuller. I'd always been good at studying since I was little, but I was very bad at communicating.
Michael really doesn't talk, huh?
What a boring guy.
In middle school, I often heard such voices. I was also nicknamed something non-talkative like a robot or a statue by those around me, and ended up being mocked. Moreover, I was hated and even avoided by them, because I was very unathletic and my presence meant just losing the game.
You are only good at studying and not at sports? Lame.
Don't join our team because we'll definitely lose if you are in it.
Thus, as if to escape from that all, I just focused on studying hard. Entering high school after such a middle school life, the number of students increased, which made my life even more difficult. Even in high school, I was repeatedly labeled as the silent type, just the same as in middle school.
Just because you're good at studying, you're acting all high and mighty, huh? Try to learn how to communicate with everyone like me.
I then began to get bullied more terribly, especially targeted by a class leader, Kenneth Rivers. He was also good at studying, and besides being more outgoing than the quiet me, he was always at the center of the class. However, if he disliked someone, he would attack them right away, so the classmates were under his control. Such a terrible guy targeted me, but I kept my distance, thinking, anyway, this is my life. That was my high school life, which I managed to get through with sheer determination. For college, I chose a state far from home and lived alone. I chose that college to avoid seeing classmates from my hometown. I also wanted to deepen my studies there, but when Kenneth asked me about that at the graduation ceremony, my body involuntarily stiffened.
You didn't apply to a local college, did you? That's because your incompetence would be revealed to others, right?
That's right. I'm going to end it with high school. I'm going out to work. Just leave me alone. I just lied, desperate to keep my path secret. Hearing that, he grinned and moved away from me, reporting that to his cronies.
Hey guys, Michael is going to work instead of college.
Still a nasty guy as always. Nevertheless, thanks to him believing that seemed to work well as a deterrent. I felt relieved, feeling finally liberated from his bullying.
Let's write some messages, guys.
During that, we were handed a yearbook by our teacher. While everyone started writing messages to each other in its blank space for messages, I just looked down at my blank space. I couldn't make any good memories there, but I was determined to do so in college, enough to fill the message space. At the college I entered, all the classmates were enthusiastically dedicated to studying. Therefore, looking at me studying quietly, no one made fun of me.
Michael, what do you think about it?
About what?
I'm talking about the interpretation of this answer. I'd really like to hear your opinion.
I was initially surprised when a classmate asked me that because my opinion had never been valued before. He did listen to my opinion, which made me extremely happy. Gradually fitting in with him felt like I was regaining myself. The bullying back in those days felt like hard to believe. College life was enjoyable enough to make me almost forget those memories. Then, even I would be able to enjoy my youth. Seeing me studying in the college library after classes, a classmate named Caroline Waters, who seemed interested in me, approached me.
Michael, you always study here after classes, right? If you don't mind, could you teach me?
Blushing slightly with nerves, she asked me to teach her, who was as adorable as a small animal. She explained that she had been studying hard on her own because she was not satisfied with her test scores, but nothing seemed to stick in her mind. While I was impressed by her dedication, I nodded in agreement with her words. With that said, I started helping her study from that day, continuing my study as well.
Thanks for driving me home today. See you tomorrow. Be careful on your way home.
Yeah, see you tomorrow. When we studied late, I made sure to drive her to her house. This was how we became close through studying. Falling for Caroline, I made up my mind. I couldn't stop those feelings, so I planned to confess to her. She was studious, and that's why she approached me. It felt presumptuous to want more, but I decided to confess after she achieved satisfactory scores. That was because I didn't want to interfere with her studies. A few days later, the day of the fateful test arrived. Until then, we had stayed at the library to study after classes. It was time to see the results. However, Caroline was disappointed after the test. When I asked why, she said she wasn't confident. Nevertheless, when the test was returned days later, her score was a perfect one.
It's all thanks to you, Michael. I really appreciate it.
Caroline was ecstatic, almost unbelievably so, and then she burst into happy tears. Taken aback by the suddenness, I listened as she continued.
If I hadn't gotten these results, my parents were going to suggest I drop out. Thanks to your dedicated teaching, I was able to avoid that.
Really? I didn't know that. She visibly relaxed, relieved. Unaware of her circumstances, I was surprised but deeply glad she could avoid dropping out.
I really hated the thought of never being able to see you at college again if I had dropped out.
If you're okay with it, would you like to continue studying together? Not just study, but I'd like you to be my partner in life. I'll really cherish you, so. With that momentum, I confessed to her. I was nervous, and as I waited for her response, she looked shocked. Worried I might have troubled her with my sudden confession, she suddenly smiled brightly as if flowers were blooming.
Of course. If you're okay with me, I'd love to be your partner.
Hearing her response and seeing her radiant smile, I couldn't help but do a victory pose. I was surprised at how openly I could express joy myself. Besides, knowing that I would be spending my college life with her made me incredibly happy. Caroline and I continued studying at the library after classes, and enjoyed some dates to take breaks from studying. Being in a different state from my high school, I could relax without running into old classmates. As we lived out our days, the time for us to graduate from college came. For me, those days were irreplaceable, filled only with good memories. It was hard to say goodbye to all our classmates, but the yearbook overflowed with warm messages from them. Tears filled my eyes, moved by emotions I had never experienced in middle or high school. Caroline was surprised to see me cry.
You must have been really moved to cry, Michael.
Saying that, she looked like she might cry too, and leaned in close to me. I shared how I had been bullied in high school and had no good memories of school, but was glad to have made good ones in college.
That must have been tough. I didn't know you went through such hard times. But let's make lots of good memories from now on.
She said that, grabbing my hand with her bright, bursting smile. After graduating, we both found jobs separately. Even though we were apart, our relationship didn't falter, and a few years later, we finally got married and were blessed with a child. We named our son Samuel.
Dad. Mom.
He grew up healthy and happy, receiving our love. Before we knew it, he was already in elementary school. He was good at studying and communicating as well. I thought it was good that he didn't inherit my bad traits. One day, I returned to my parents' home with Samuel. A letter from one of my classmates had arrived there, and I needed to check that.
Grandma. Grandpa.
Good to see you, Samuel.
While the sociable Samuel played with my mom and dad, I read the letter from my classmate. It was an invitation to an upcoming alumni association. If it were for my college classmates, I'd go to the reunion without hesitation, but it turned out to be from a high school one. A sense of discomfort resurfaced, and I was going to ignore that, but when I mentioned that to my parents, they suggested I stay at their house with Samuel on the day of the party.
Caroline must be tired from balancing work and parenting. It would be good to give her a break once in a while. Also, it's been a long time since those classmates bullied you, and there must be a reason they invited you now. You can't change if you always hold on to the past. You have to see it in a good light, right?
My mom said, smiling at Samuel next to her. He energetically replied, happy to know he'd be staying at his grandparents'. That was the summer vacation period, and he was really excited about fun activities. My mom also dotes on him a lot. She seems to be completely in love with him. It seemed like she just wanted to spend time with him, but without overthinking that, I decided to stay at my parents' the night before and the day of the party.
Take care. And say hello to your mother and father for me.
Yeah. And you too, be careful when you're out alone. Take it easy. Then, the day before the Alumni Association, after parting with Caroline, I headed to my parents' home with Samuel. Upon arrival, my parents were there to greet us and took care of him. We stayed that night, and the following day. As the party time approached, I left Samuel with my parents and went to the venue. My mom said she would come pick me up with him, but I told her it was fine for them to stay home. Nevertheless, she planned to take him to the amusement arcade by car while I was at the party, and would pick me up on their way back. I inwardly objected, thinking I wasn't a child. Even so, considering I would probably drink alcohol at night, I gave in and asked her to pick me up.
Hey, isn't that Michael?
Michael, long time no see.
A few minutes later, when I arrived at the venue, I was greeted by familiar faces. My stomach churned as I remembered the past, but I was surprised by that unexpected warm reception. Everyone seemed genuinely friendly towards me.
I'm sorry for the past. We didn't really understand you back then.
That's okay. I didn't really talk much with everyone either. Surrounded by a welcoming atmosphere, we reconciled. It seemed they had come to understand, as adults, that there were introverted people like me. I assured them I wasn't holding on to the past. However, in contrast to everyone else, one person seemed unchanged.
Hey, long time no see, Michael. Been keeping well?
Kenneth. Kenneth and his cronies had arrived late. It seemed they specifically called out to me upon seeing me.
Let's step outside for a bit. You probably want to cool off from the booze.
While I was indeed enjoying a drink with everyone, I hesitated to go outside with just him and his cronies. However, I was not the silent me from back then anymore. All right, but make it quick. I accepted his invitation, and together with his cronies, we headed outside. The classmates looked puzzled, but when they realized it was Kenneth, they seemed apprehensive. That clearly showed how he had been dominating everyone all that time.
Just a high school grad, and you dare show up at the Alumni Association, huh? It must be an alien world to you, but I'm running a bank.
Is that so? Seeing his attitude, still trying to assert dominance, I thought to myself how he hadn't changed at all. When I responded nonchalantly, he suddenly burst out laughing.
Talking to you doesn't make sense. You can't comprehend greatness, can you? I'm ashamed of my incompetent classmate.
He turned me into their laughing stock along with his cronies. I sighed in disbelief and finally spoke up. Is that all you wanted to say? Sorry, but I need to go soon.
Wait, man. After all this time we finally meet, and you're so cold. The party is just getting started. If you like, I can tell you about the splendid story of how I became a bank president.
I was about to leave as it was about time for my mom and Samuel to pick me up, and Kenneth's annoying persistence was frankly irritating. Then, I noticed a familiar car pulling up as a small car horn sounded.
Dad, I'm here to pick you up.
Samuel hopped out of the car and ran straight towards me as soon as he saw me. Also, my mother was in the driver's seat.
Did you have fun with Grandma, Samuel?
Yeah. Look, this is what I won from the claw machine.
Samuel showed off the game console he had won. I chuckled and praised him, which made him happy. Watching our interaction, Kenneth said surprisingly,
No way. You're married and even have a kid?
And looking back and forth between us. Knowing it was out, I responded,
Yeah. I assume you too, right? A bank president.
When I taunted back, his face blushed with anger.
No, I never have those stuff, just a burden on me. That's why I could go ahead in my career, unlike you, incompetent.
Wow, you are a bank president? That's cool. But my dad is even more amazing. He runs a big hospital.
What did you say?
Kenneth was shocked again by Samuel's innocent words. I never expected Samuel to casually reveal my true identity. That unexpected turn of events made me panic.
Samuel, you don't need to say that.
Why not? It seems like these people didn't know how great you are, so I just told them. Mom runs another hospital too, and I wanted to brag about my amazing family.
I hurriedly covered his mouth as he was about to reveal more about my wife, Caroline's profession. Kenneth was visibly shocked. His cronies were puzzled by his reaction.
So what? Even though you are a doctor, you must be a quack, right? Don't brag, stupid kid.
Kenneth harshly shouted even at Samuel, a child, who looked up at him and stunned. The next moment, Samuel said what I never expected.
You work at KSB Bank, right?
So what?
Kenneth answered gruffly to him. Then Samuel looked up at me and said,
Dad, let's move our savings.
Huh? I was just dumbfounded by his words. When I asked why, he turned his gaze sternly back to Kenneth.
I don't like this bank man. He mocks you and me, and he's childish even though he's an adult. I don't want to deal with him anymore. We have about $90 million in savings, right? If we move it from this guy's bank, we can really teach him a lesson.
I was perplexed and couldn't immediately respond.
Stop joking around. I've been quietly listening, and now you say $90 million in your account? Cut it out. You and your son lying together will bring you bad luck.
Kenneth clearly didn't believe that I was a doctor, nor that I had $90 million in savings. Seeing his continued condescending attitude towards us, I had a change of heart.
Who really deserves to be struck by karma, I wonder?
What do you mean?
And neither of those is a joke. What my son said is true.
I smirked, fixing Kenneth with a steady gaze.
Just you wait and see.
I thought.
I can't wait and see what happens to you tomorrow, Kenneth. Well then, we're leaving now.
I ushered Samuel into the car, turned my back on Kenneth and his cronies, and went home by a car driven by my mom. They all laughed as if my words were just a parting shot, but everything changed the following day. As I was visiting the bank near my parents' house, Kenneth, who had just arrived at work, went pale when he saw Samuel and me.
What have you done? Upsetting such a valuable customer.
It was the bank's vice president who raised his voice at the newly arrived Kenneth. I had told him I wanted to withdraw and close an account holding $90 million, and they had been trying to delay me until Kenneth arrived.
This man is a valuable customer? There must be some mistake.
Normally, someone else came on his behalf. So it's understandable you didn't recognize him. But such behavior towards an acquaintance is unacceptable. He insists on withdrawing all his $90 million and won't leave otherwise. If he does, this bank might collapse, and your position will also be at risk.
Kenneth was at a loss for words hearing his desperate pleas. Amidst that, Samuel and I approached Kenneth. It wasn't a joke, Kenneth. A bank like this, with you in it, deserves to collapse. You should start over, both as a bank president and as a person. Seeing my anger, his face turned even paler, struck dumb by shock. Ignoring that, I reiterated my demand to the vice president to withdraw that money. He reluctantly complied and handed over the $90 million.
That bank really did collapse, huh?
Months later, as Samuel and I were visiting my parents again, he noticed that the site where the bank used to be had become vacant land.
That man, he was your classmate, right, Dad? Sorry, I said we should teach him a lesson.
It's okay. He's the kind of person who won't learn unless it's done that way. Besides, if he had continued working at that bank, it would have ended up like this eventually. It just happened sooner rather than later. I reassured him. Right. It was bound to happen sooner or later. I knew that when I decided to transfer that money to another bank, whose president told me that Kenneth's bank was notorious for changing its customer service based on appearances and so on. After the bank collapsed, Kenneth struggled to find another job in banking, only to be shunned. He ended up working hard in a physically demanding job, which had nothing to do with banking. I do hope he's learned his lesson. If Samuel hadn't spoken up, I'm not sure if I would have taken the step to close the account and take action. Just as I was thinking how he had caught me off guard, certain news arrived at our home. Really? You're pregnant? Caroline was pregnant with another family member on the way, bringing joy to Samuel and me. We didn't know the gender yet, but I was sure the child would get along well with Samuel. Thinking about that naturally brought a smile to my face.